Hey everyone, welcome back to our podcast where you improve your English through real conversations, real emotions, and sometimes very questionable life decisions.
That sounds suspicious already. Hi guys, I'm Eva.
And I'm Leo. Today we are talking about something that sounds simple but actually changes people's lives in a huge way: positivity.
Yes, and before you roll your eyes and think this is going to be one of those just smile and everything will be perfect conversations, don't worry. We're going to talk about real situations, real struggles, and how positivity actually works in everyday life.
Exactly, because positivity is not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is amazing when your coffee spills on your laptop and your Wi-Fi stops working at the same time.
Oh wow, that sounds very specific. Did that happen to you?
We are not talking about me today.
Okay, so today's story is inspired by something I read on a forum where people shared moments when a positive attitude completely changed their situation. And honestly, one story really stood out because it started as a total disaster, but ended up changing someone's career and friendships.
And we will use this story to show how positivity affects relationships, work, mental health, and even unexpected opportunities.
So, let's imagine a guy named Daniel. Daniel lives in a big city and works at a marketing company. He's talented, hardworking, but recently he's been feeling stressed, tired, and honestly kind of negative about everything.
Which is very relatable because adult life sometimes feels like a never-ending to-do list mixed with surprise bills.
Exactly. So one Monday morning, Daniel wakes up late because his alarm didn't ring, his phone battery died overnight, and when he looks outside, it's raining heavily.
Already sounds like a classic I want to stay in bed forever situation.
Daniel jumps out of bed and says, "I can't believe this is happening." This is a very common phrase when something frustrating starts your day.
Yes, and people often say it when things feel unfair or unlucky, like when you study for an exam and then the questions are completely different from what you prepared. Daniel rushes to get ready, and while he's running to catch the bus, he steps into a huge puddle and his shoes get completely wet.
And at that moment, he says, "This is the worst day ever."
Which is something people say when emotions take control, even though logically they know it might not be the worst day in history, but it definitely feels like it.
Daniel misses the bus and decides to stop at a coffee shop to calm down before work. He orders coffee and stands in line looking extremely stressed.
Behind him is an older woman named Mrs. Carter who notices he looks upset. She smiles and says, "Rough morning?" This is a very natural small talk phrase in English. It means, "Are you having a bad morning?" Daniel sighs and replies, "You have no idea."
This phrase means the situation is worse than people imagine. Mrs. Carter laughs softly and says something interesting. You know, sometimes bad mornings lead to good days.
This is where positivity enters the story, but not in a fake motivational way. She's speaking from experience. Daniel replies, "I seriously doubt that."
Very realistic response, because when people feel stressed, they usually don't want advice or positive quotes. Mrs. Carter says, "Trust me, I've been there, and sometimes the way you react to problems decides how your day continues."
Daniel arrives at work late and discovers that he has to present an important project to clients. And here comes the big problem. He forgot to finish part of the presentation.
That is literally nightmare material for anyone who works in business or studies at university. Daniel sits at his desk thinking, "I'm totally screwed." This is slang, and it means someone is in serious trouble.
His coworker Jason walks in and says, "Hey man, you look stressed. Everything okay?" Notice how "hey man" is casual and friendly, very common between coworkers or friends. Daniel starts complaining about his day, and Jason listens quietly and then says, "You know what? Let's fix this together."
This is where positivity often starts: support from other people. Jason gives Daniel a simple idea. He says, instead of thinking about everything that's going wrong, try thinking about what you can control right now.
And this is actually a very powerful psychological technique that helps reduce anxiety. Daniel stops for a moment and says, "Okay, maybe I can finish the slides and simplify the presentation." Jason smiles and says, "See? That's the spirit."
This phrase means someone likes your positive attitude or effort. Daniel presents the project, but something unexpected happens. Instead of pretending everything is perfect, he tells the clients, "I want to be honest. Some parts of this project are still in progress, but I'd love to hear your ideas and feedback."
That is a risky but confident move. And surprisingly, clients often appreciate honesty more than fake perfection. The clients respond positively and say they like his openness and teamwork attitude. Daniel feels shocked and whispers, "Wow, that actually worked."
After the meeting, the company manager calls Daniel into the office. Daniel thinks he's in trouble again and says, "Here we go."
This phrase means someone expects something bad to happen, but the manager says, "I liked how you handled the presentation. You stayed calm, honest, and cooperative." Daniel feels surprised and says, "Really? I thought it was a mess." The manager laughs and replies, "Sometimes people trust positive and honest employees more than perfect ones."
Over the next few weeks, Daniel starts practicing positive thinking, not fake happiness, but realistic optimism. He starts noticing small good things during the day.
Like finishing tasks earlier, having better conversations, or simply enjoying lunch without checking emails every 2 minutes like a stressed robot. Daniel also starts helping coworkers more often, and people begin trusting him more. One coworker even says, "You're great to work with."
And compliments like that can seriously boost confidence and motivation. Daniel's positivity also affects his personal life. He starts talking more openly with friends, spending less time complaining and more time laughing and sharing experiences.
One evening, his friend asks, "What changed about you?" Daniel thinks for a moment and says, "I stopped focusing only on problems and started noticing opportunities and solutions." And let's be honest, Eva, positivity doesn't mean life suddenly becomes perfect, right?
Absolutely not. Daniel still has stressful days, bad weather, and annoying emails. But now he reacts differently. Instead of saying, "Everything is terrible," he says, "This is difficult, but I'll figure it out." And that small difference changes emotions, decisions, and even relationships.
You know, I actually read on a psychology forum that people who practice positive thinking often solve problems faster because they don't panic as much and they can see more possible solutions.
Yes, and I read a story where someone said positivity helped them during job interviews because they spoke with confidence and calm energy, which made interviewers trust them more.
Also, positivity affects health. Stress decreases when people focus on solutions instead of constantly imagining worst-case scenarios.
And relationships improve because people naturally enjoy spending time with someone who brings good energy instead of constant negativity and complaints. One day, Daniel goes back to the same coffee shop and meets Mrs. Carter again. He smiles and says, "You were right." She laughs and asks, "What happened?" Daniel explains how changing his mindset helped his career, friendships, and confidence. Mrs. Carter smiles warmly and says, "Sometimes positivity doesn't change the world. It changes how you see the world." Daniel replies, "And when you see the world differently, your decisions and actions change too."
I love this story because it shows that positivity is not magic, but it's powerful because it changes reactions, communication, and mindset.
Exactly, and positivity doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means believing that problems can be solved.
If you practice this mindset while learning English, you will also improve faster because you will not be afraid of mistakes or difficult conversations.
Mistakes are literally part of learning, and honestly, sometimes mistakes create the funniest and most memorable stories.
And if you enjoyed this podcast and want more real-life English conversations, stories, and vocabulary practice,
So, about 2 months after Daniel's successful presentation and his growing confidence at work, he starts feeling comfortable in his routine. He is performing well, his coworkers respect him, and he finally feels like he belongs in the company.
which is dangerous sometimes because comfort zones feel safe, but life loves surprising people when they least expect it.
Exactly. One morning, Daniel opens his email and sees a message from the company director with the subject line, "Important Team Restructuring Update."
That already sounds scary.
Yes, and Daniel immediately thinks, uh-oh, this doesn't sound good. That is a very natural reaction phrase when someone expects bad news. He opens the email and discovers the company is planning major changes. Several teams will be merged, and some employees might lose their positions. Daniel feels his stomach drop and quietly says, "Here we go again." Daniel feels panic slowly returning. His brain starts creating worst-case scenarios, like losing his job, struggling financially, and disappointing his family.
Which is something our brains love to do, imagine dramatic future problems even when nothing has happened yet. Daniel sits at his desk and says to himself, "I knew this was too good to last."
This very shows negative expectation, and people often say it when they believe good situations cannot continue. But suddenly, Daniel remembers Jason's advice from part 1, focus on what you can control. He takes a deep breath and whispers, "Okay, don't freak out, let's think."
Daniel walks to the break room and finds Jason drinking coffee while scrolling through his phone. Jason looks up and says, "Man, you look like you just watched the final episode of your favorite show and hated it."
That is such a modern, relatable joke. Daniel laughs nervously and replies, "I just read the restructuring email. I'm worried."
Jason nods and says, "Yeah, same here, but panicking won't help. Let's wait for more information."
Waiting calmly is actually part of positivity, even though it feels uncomfortable. Daniel sighs and says, "I hate uncertainty."
That is a very honest and relatable sentence, especially for language learners, because it is simple but emotionally strong. Jason replies, "Nobody likes uncertainty, but sometimes it creates opportunities we don't expect."
Later that day, the company holds a meeting explaining the restructuring plan. The manager explains that new leadership positions will be created and employees can apply for them. Daniel listens carefully, but feels nervous because leadership sounds exciting and terrifying. He whispers to Jason, "I'm not ready for something like that." Jason smiles and says, "Maybe you're more ready than you think." Daniel responds, "I don't know. I still feel like I'm figuring things out." That phrase shows self-doubt, which is very common in professional environments. That evening, Daniel sits in the same coffee shop again, thinking deeply about his future. And guess what happens?
Please tell me Mrs. Carter appears again like a wise movie character.
Exactly. She walks in, notices him, and smiles. She asks, "You look thoughtful. Good thoughtful or stressful thoughtful?" Daniel laughs and replies, "Definitely stressful thoughtful." He explains the work situation, and Mrs. Carter listens quietly before saying something interesting. Sometimes fear shows you where growth is hiding.
That sounds like something people screenshot and post on social media, but honestly, it makes sense. Daniel says, "I'm scared to apply for leadership. What if I fail?" Mrs. Carter responds, "And what if you succeed?" Daniel pauses. He did not think about that possibility.
After thinking for several days, Daniel decides to apply for one of the leadership roles. While filling out the application, he says, "This is scary, but kind of exciting."
That is a powerful combination of emotions that often appears before personal growth. Daniel practices his interview answers and even records himself speaking, which feels awkward at first. Then he laughs, saying, "I sound weird. Do I really talk like this?"
Which is something every language learner and public speaker experiences. During the leadership interview, Daniel feels confident at first, but halfway through, one interviewer asks a difficult question about handling conflict between team members. Daniel freezes for a moment and says, "That's a great question. Let me think for a second."
This is actually a very smart professional phrase because it gives you time to organize thoughts instead of saying something confusing. Daniel then answers honestly and shares a real example when he helped coworkers solve a disagreement by encouraging open communication. The interviewers nod and seem impressed. After leaving the room, Daniel whispers, "That could have gone worse."
Waiting becomes emotionally challenging. Daniel feels hopeful one moment and worried the next. He tells Jason, "I keep checking my email every 5 minutes. It's driving me crazy." Jason laughs and says, "Welcome to the waiting game. Nobody likes it." Daniel replies, "I'm trying to stay positive, but it's hard." Jason answers, "Positivity doesn't mean feeling happy all the time. It means not giving up on hope." One afternoon, Daniel finally receives the email. He opens it slowly and reads that he has been selected as assistant team leader. He sits silently for a moment and then says, "No way, this is actually happening." He calls Jason and says, "I got the position." Jason shouts, "That's awesome, man!" Daniel quickly discovers leadership is much harder than he expected. He now manages team conflicts, deadlines, and communication problems. One day, he tells Jason, "I thought getting the job was the hard part. Turns out, keeping it is harder." Jason laughs and replies, "Welcome to leadership." Daniel sometimes feels overwhelmed, but instead of saying, "I can't handle this," he says, "I'm still learning."
And that sentence is incredibly powerful for growth mindset.
Daniel begins encouraging his team members to stay positive during stressful projects. He often says, "We're not perfect, but we're improving." One teammate tells him, "You make the team feel calmer and more confident." Daniel smiles and says, "I learned that from someone else."
I think this part of the story shows how positivity spreads between people, almost like emotional energy.
Yes, psychologists call this emotional contagion. When someone stays calm and optimistic, others often copy that behavior.
Also, positivity helps people take risks, like Daniel applying for leadership, which he would never have done before.
And it improves communication because positive people usually listen more and judge less. Mercy, mid-attentional gap year later, meets Mrs. Carter again and tells her about his new role and challenges. She smiles and asks, "Do you still think positivity is just motivational nonsense?" Daniel laughs and replies, "No, now I think positivity is a skill." She nods and says, "And like every skill, it gets stronger with practice."
I love that idea. Positivity as a skill, not just a personality trait.
Exactly, because anyone can practice it even if they naturally worry or overthink sometimes.
And remember, positivity doesn't remove problems, it changes how you face them.
If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English while listening to real conversations and life lessons,
make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who might need motivation or English practice today.
thank you so much for listening and learning with us.